Hello, I'm Johnny Hare. Today I'd like to show you how to build what I call a lidded box with windows. You can think of this box as two bowls sitting one on top of the other. The lid goes over the top of the base, and we'll call it the lid and the base, and has a little shelf so that it sits on there properly. And the windows are made out of epoxy, as you can see, and it's a lot simpler than it might look like. So here are the basics, and in addition I made some tools for myself that I'll show you. The two blocks below are cylindrical cuts that are spindle turned on the lathe offline, and it's very important that they be put on and spindle cut with a 4-jaw chuck so you can put them back after the epoxy's in them. Now what I'm doing is scribing a circle that will be where each of the Forstner bit holes will go down, and it's a little bit it's not rocket science or anything. It's just a little bit hard to understand what I'm doing by watching this, so I'm going to show another video. This is sort of a picture of what we're doing. The picture has two concentric rings and some radial lines that come out. And the two concentric rings, the outside one is the wood, the inside one is the circle that I'm scribing. And the circle is the radius of the circle is set so that you can have a 1/8 inch or even up to a 1/4 inch difference between the edge of the holes and the edge of the wood. It's very important that those things go on the same side, because if you're off on how far apart they are, like they're 72 degrees because they're 5 of them, and if that's off a little bit, nobody will notice. But if you're off even the slightest bit on how close one of the holes is to how close another one is, everyone will notice it. It won't look good. So here I measured how far it was. I'm going to hit it with the hammer so that I mark it in the wood. Now this isn't one that I'm doing, it's just an example of the process. So knocked a hole in it, then I'm going to grab the compass and reach onto that hole, or the little knock that I made with that Forstner bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a circle, scribe that circle. That circle is where the Forstner bits, where every hole that's made by the Forstner bit has to start. And if it doesn't, things don't look as good. There's some light for you, sorry about that. And so this circle is scribed, and that's what I was doing in the other portion of the video on the real one, but this one I thought you could see a little bit better. So there's the circle, and now I'm going to mark all those radial lines. There's 5 of them, and I made this little template, which you don't have to do. You can just go get a whatever those things are that have angles, I forgot what it's called, and I'm putting these things in, putting my little template in that I made, and you don't have to do that, or if you want to you can. And I'm going to get a real fine pencil and mark where these lines hit the circle, and then I'll know exactly where to put the Forstner bits when I do the drilling. So as you can see by the yellow lighting, I'm at the drill press. I'm putting on the Forstner bit that I chose and made the circle marking for, and all the marks for where it goes are set, and all I have to do is set the depth of where I want the Forstner bit to go. I'm doing this in a crude manner by pulling up and down the platform of the drill press and holding down as far as I can go, and that's as deep as it's going to be. So I'm going to just start drilling here, and I drilled all 10 holes identical. The 2 blocks are still identical for the base and the lid. And since I doubt that very many of you don't know how to drill a hole, I'm not going to show drilling all 10 holes. I'll show starting this one, and then we'll jump to the epoxy table where all the epoxy will be put in the holes. Mixing the epoxy, there's the resin, and it's the rest of it, because I've got some of it already in there, and it's 7050 from the epoxy store on the internet. It's the epoxy called 7050. That's the 2-to-1, and the resin there that I poured is the 2-part. And now I've got to reach over and put in the 1/2 of that to be the 2-to-1. And so there it is. And now we're going to jump to where we're mixing it. Okay, I'm mixing up the epoxy. Just did it, and it was 3 minutes, and I didn't think you wanted to watch that. So there it is, about 50-50. I'm going to put purple in one of those containers and gold in the other one, and I'm going to put the purple on the bottom and the gold on top of it. Now it's important not to mix the purple and the gold, just pour them together. They don't look as, they'll just make a single color if you mix them, but if you pour them in the same container without mixing them, they look real pretty, and that's what we're shooting for. Mixing the purple, going to break off this stick and show you a little trick so I can use that again, and you put it on the table where it'll fall right off. See, there it goes. See, I did that on purpose. Okay, so I'm mixing the yellow or the gold now, and they're ready to pour into the hole. I've poured the purple into all the 10 holes, and now I'm filling the top with gold. And there's a stick that I'm going to just barely touch it. You don't mix it exactly, you just push it. If you mix it, it becomes one color, and the gold and the purple look very good together, but not stirred up. Now I'm carrying the lid and the base over to the pressure pot and setting them in there. Remember, right now we don't know which one's the lid and which one's the base, and it doesn't matter yet. So I'm going to put the top on it and set it for 60 psi, but then we'll come back later. Time flies. It's all over with. It's been hours, and we're going to take it out of the pressure pot and put one of them on the lathe. I put one of them on the lathe, and it's going to be the base, I decided. The epoxy has shrunk, and so instead of starting on the side like you normally would, I'm going to make the face of it, or where the end grain is on this spindle, flat before I start that. So that's what I'm doing here. The top of the base is flat, on the edges at least, and then I'm starting on the side. I also I'm taking out now about a 1/16 from the edge. Remember, it's got only 1/8, but I need to make room for the lid to fit on it. So I'm taking out about a 1/16, and I'm going down the side. Now, what I'm doing is cutting along where the windows will show, making the windows show actually, and we've got a long way to go because they're very narrow, so I've got to cut a very acute angle. So I'm going to turn the speed up here and do the next clip a little faster, and you can see as it goes down to the windows start showing. And at the first, since the bottom of the hole is flat, it's going to show flat, and you've got to cut all the way through that to the other side so that it looks round. It looks like a normal window. Before I speed it up, I forgot to mention now the windows are very short, and so the angle has to be quite acute to cut from the top there through the windows. It's got to go all the way through to the other side of the window on the bottom. So now I've cut through most of the bottom of the hole, and I've got to check it and see when I get through all the way and it looks round. So when I turn it off and look at it, I'll look at it to see if the what I'm cutting has cut all the way through the bottom of the, and you can see it's got a little bottom of the well for the epoxy. In this picture you should see the hole with the epoxy, and we're cutting down from the top of one side of the hole to the bottom of the other, making a thin strip that's round at the bottom and the top. So the final design is to come way on down like that and cut out most of the epoxy. Now the epoxies needs to be treated very carefully, and that's why I'm sanding a little earlier than I usually do. The outside of the base is about shaped right, and now it's time to hollow it out. When you hollow it out, all you're really doing is following the curve that you already did on the outside. And I'm not going to show a lot of detail of that because I think you all probably know how to hollow things out. Okay, the other block is on, which is going to be the lid, and it's, as you see, it needs to be cut a little bit to make a shelf like the two bowls I was talking about. So it'll be a bowl that goes up on top of the base, but it has to have a little shelf to hold itself on there. So I had to add, it had shrunk too, but I added some more epoxy to it, which you didn't see offline. So I'm going to try to make that little shelf for the base first, and then I'll do the same thing down the side, and then I'll come back and hollow it out. So I'm having to check to see if I'd got the base right, and it's not right yet, so I do that several times, and and so I'm going to skip over to where I start down the side. The lid is very much like the base in that you have to cut in a very acute angle down the side until you've cut off all the way through the bottom of the hole that contains the epoxy, so that it'll look round. If you look at it, as soon as you cut it a little bit into it, it just looks flat there because that's the shape of the drill bit that you're using. But when you cut all the way through there, it looks round and it looks very nice like a window. So that's what we're shooting for. Same thing as the base. So this is the lid, and it's got the little shelf for the base to sit, for it to sit on the base actually. And now I'm cutting down the side just like the base. I'm going to do that real quickly because you've already seen it pretty much. Now the lid is finished, and the pretty much, and the need to work on the lid handle. That's what's holding the lid on this right now. And I'm going to do something unusual for you, just for your benefit. I'm going to, when I part it, I'm going to cut it off on purpose and let it fly off the lathe, just so you'll see what not to do. I think a lot of people don't teach you what not to do. And so you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to hold on to it with one hand and finish it with the other. But I just thought I'd be extra nice to you and show you how to do it wrong. So the lid handle is getting fashioned up here, and when it gets time, I'm just going to let it fly off. On the bottom of the screen, you'll notice the lip that the this lid handle we use to set on the base. Okay, it's almost time to cut the thing off and let it fly on the floor. Remember, I'm doing all this on purpose for your edification. Normally I would never make like a mistake, but if I were to make one, this would be one. There's the parting tool, and no matter what you think, I'm doing it on purpose. So I'm reaching on the ground to pick the lid up just to show you that I knew just what I was doing, and it didn't hurt it at all. Of course, I need to go sand the top of the lid handle, but that's another thing. It was all on purpose. See, it fits fine. I've remounted the base, and I'm going to make the base of the base a little bit smaller, of which I'm using my parting tool for some reason that I don't know right now. And I'm going to make that smaller and then part it with that parting tool. And so then the construction of the base and the heavy-duty lid that can withstand falls will be ready to go and ready to finish. Here I'm going to use some Axe abrasive paste, which is just like Yorkshire grit, except maybe cheaper. And cheaper than all is you can make your own with equal parts of beeswax, mineral oil, and pumice. And I've done that on occasion, and it's actually a lot cheaper, but a little bit more trouble. You can do it in your kitchen if your spouse allows it. Cutting off parting the base, and of course I'm not going to let it fall on the floor because I've already showed you that. I have some hooks hanging down from the ceiling, and so I found the world's dullest drill bit, and I'm going to drill a hole in both the lid at the lid handle like that and the base, and hang them up in the ceiling to spray, just to show you how you can do it if you want to. It seems like to me that you get those off the ground and you do better. So here's the lidded box with windows. It was a fun project, small. I'd call it intermediate, not beginner, but it was still a lot of fun, and I think you should try it. And thank you for staying with me, and hope you have a good day.